Welcome to working group, sub-working group 3.2 of the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats. This is the December session, December 14th, and this is part of a 3-hour meeting. This is the second of 3 for tonight. I'm going to start off with some administrative announcements and turn it over to our co-chairs. First, on the synthetic drug resolution, the U.S. is sponsoring a synthetic drug-focused resolution in the UN General Assembly plenary with the goal of adoption by consensus with all 193 UN member states next Monday, December 18th in New York City. The United States introduced this resolution to highlight the emerging global issues related to synthetic drugs and to urge widespread and unified support to address their associated public health and security challenges. This resolution aligns with U.S. efforts to enhance international cooperation on this urgent issue through the Global Coalition and ongoing efforts in the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs. We urge your governments to demonstrate strong support for this effort to further elevate synthetic drugs as an urgent international priority by co-sponsoring this text and also by voting in favor of this issue. The second topic is that of civil society engagement. Those that participated in the July 2023 ministerial recall the declaration that was agreed upon at that meeting for participating governments to take into account input from civil society in the coalition objectives. As you know, by consensus, the coalition members decided that this forum would be open, this current forum that you're all part of right now would be open to government representatives and to international organizations. So we have designed this secondary process to engage civil society. This will be posted on our website, globalcoalition.us, but in short, it will include 1, national dialogues of coalition governments in January and February, and the U.S., leading by example, will be organizing one of these through the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy on the 27th of January. There will be a roundtable that will be organized with U.S. civil society organizations. A meeting summary will be produced and posted on the website, and we would invite other governments to do the same. Send us your summaries of those events, and we will post them on the coalition website. Additionally, also in late July, we're looking at a global civil society forum that will be organized by the Vienna NGO Committee, with a multi-hour meeting that will include the voices of civil society from around the world and the recommendations and ideas in terms of the coalition. Then third, we're going to have an exchange of experiences on the coalition website from civil society. We will invite video recordings that we'll post on the website from civil society partners. And then we will also invite recommendations from civil society organizations that will also be posted. Finally, we will invite civil society to send us achievements of what they have accomplished in relation to synthetic drugs, and that will be shared on the coalition website from April to July. I will also mention that at the discretion of co-chairs, civil society representatives may be invited to present at specific sub-working group meetings, and we will announce those in advance, again, at the discretion of the co-chairs for each individual sub-working group. The last thing that I'll say is that the coalition website is online, globalcoalition.us. There you can see the upcoming agendas for subsequent months. Please check that website out in the coming weeks to see the January sessions. You can also see past recordings, and we invite you all, colleagues, to send us videos that we can also post with additional content, additional recommendations, or just initiatives that you would like to showcase. The recordings can be of any length. We don't need to sort of keep those within time constraints. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our co-chairs for tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Yatan Paul-Singh Balara and Dr. Riza Sarasvita. Over to you, Dr. Yatan.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much. Hello, and a very warm welcome to all of you. We greatly appreciate your presence and your engagement with this coalition. In today's session, we are going to have 3 presentations. We have speakers from different agencies that will be talking about 3 important themes. Following these presentations, we'll have an open house where we welcome your questions, your comments, and we are really interested in knowing your experiences, especially on these themes. Also, in case you prefer to type your messages or your questions, please feel free to do so throughout this session. You may like to make use of the chat box. We'll be keeping an eye over there, and we'll take up these questions and comments after the presentations are over. So let's start with the first presentation, and the first presentation has two speakers, Ms. Anja Busse and Dr. Dzmitry. Ms. Anja is a program officer at UNODC, and Dr. Dzmitry is a medical officer with WHO. They'll be speaking on development of low threshold treatment services, mainly in the primary care settings. So may I kindly request for the presentation? Thank you.
Good evening, good morning, good day, everyone, to this session of the Global Synthetics Coalition. And we're here from UNODC and the World Health Organization to speak for a moment about our new products around mainstreaming treatment of drug use disorders into health care, and specifically the implementation of the WHO UNODC international standards for the treatment of drug use disorder and how their dissemination can help achieve this goal. And we will be presenting to you together. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Dzmitry Krupchanka, who's medical officer with the Alcohol, Drugs and Addictive Behaviors Unit of WHO. And as you know, I'm Anja Busse with the Prevention, Treatment, Rehabilitation section of UNODC. As you might be aware of, the international standards for the treatment of drug use disorders are developed on the basis of a number of technical documents of UNODC and WHO. And since they have been launched in 2020, they really have become an internationally recognized tool and a common reference point for a lot of countries. They have at least been backed up by two resolutions of the Commission on Narcotic Drugs, but also by the General Assembly.
So greetings, colleagues from Geneva, and I would like to continue what Anja said. The international standards is kind of a very well acknowledged now a reference tool for a variety of topics related to treatment of drug use disorder. But also it's important not to forget that there are other tools which contributed to the development of standards, that they still can be used for more specific activities like WHO assist screen and brief intervention package you can see here on the right, or guidelines on treatment opioid dependence, guidelines on overdose management. Then we have MHGAP guidelines for treatment of comorbid mental health conditions. We have guidelines and documents for specific population and groups. But at some point it was we were informed by countries and colleagues that we need to develop a once document that brings everything together. And we started this work a long time ago, was almost 10 years ago. In 2016, we launched the first version of the International Standard for Treatment of Drug Use Disorders. And then it was field tested in 9 countries, where we collected information on barriers, opportunities, but also on what are the potential revisions that could make the document stronger. After this field testing, we revised this document and launched a second edition in 2020. And as indicated on this slide, you see we make sure that all the tools that I mentioned and others, they are properly reflected in this document. They acknowledged and they build in the areas which require attention. But then what we learned during field testing is that just this document is an amazing tool, but the question is how to make it work in countries, how to implement it. And that's why to serve this purpose, to make the implementation smoother, easier, and clearer, we have been working on the implementation toolkits, and very soon we will launch it. So it's a very advanced stage now. And actually what we tried also to do, we tried to find any other potential sources that can help implementation, such as WHO Health System Framework, such as WHO Core Competencies Frameworks, Rapid Assessment Guide for Emergency Settings, quality assurance tools. You've probably heard a lot about them. I think it's also a very important and strong tool that can be used for implementation. Also WHO tools for mapping service capacity, etc., etc. So we try to accommodate them into one implementation toolkit, and the hope that in coming years we'll be doing piloting in countries and then implementation and scaling up. So this is a very quick snapshot on the content of this implementation tool. It basically, the structure mirrors a bit the structure of the standard. So it has a system, setting, and services level, then treatment modalities and intervention level, and also population with special needs. And it kind of highlights 4 main stages for the implementation, which are assessment or landscape analysis, action planning, implementation, and then monitoring and evaluation. And then for system, for service, and for intervention level, we have different kind of sub-tools or different frameworks that would help the implementation. So idea that the country can decide if they want to do the full package implementation, or if they want just to focus on settings or intervention or system levels. So it's kind of a versatile tool, but of course we need to work more to adapt it and to really hear from countries after piloting how this needs to be further changed and finalized.
So, and with this, if you're interested in working further on the implementation of the international standards for the treatment of drug use disorders, and work with us with this new dissemination toolkit and see how we can support your country in making or reviewing how much you're already in line with the international standards, or kind of want to develop further to develop your quality drug treatment and rehabilitation services in line with the standards, we would of course also be happy to work with you and UNODC WHO. We have for over a decade a very successful interagency program, the UNODC WHO Global Program on Drug Dependence Treatment and Care, that has worked since 2009 to support development of comprehensive, integrated health-based approaches to drug policies, with the aim to reduce the demand for illicit substances, including synthetic substances, of course, reduce suffering and decrease drug-related harm, not only for individuals, but also for their families, communities, and in the end, kind of the societies as a whole. So this would also be our vehicle to implement a number of specific projects or initiatives in countries, again, including the dissemination toolkit of the standards. And we would be very open for partnerships and would love to hear from you how we can coordinate and support you in your efforts to ensure quality, accessible, and evidence-based drug dependence treatment and care. Thank you so much for that. And maybe last not least, of course, we would like to thank the donors of the UNODC WHO program on drug dependence and treatment and care, who have given us that trust for all those years since 2009. Thank you so much, and over to the chairs again.
Thank you, Ms. Anja and Dr. Dzmitry, for sharing these valuable resources. We do look forward to having this implementation toolkit, because having evidence-based intervention is important, but it's equally important that we identify the potential barriers for their implementation and ensure that these interventions reach the people who need them closer to the places where they live. And primary care settings are one such setting where we need to ensure availability of these interventions. Thank you so much. Another important aspect related to ensuring accessibility and availability of the services is ensuring that these services, they adhere to the international standards of care. And our second presentation for today's session is in line with that. The presenter for this session is Ms. Annette Dale-Perera. She is CEO at NOFAR in Qatar. She will be talking about quality assurance in treatment of substance use disorders. May I request for her presentation, please?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's very early morning here in Qatar. Let me just check that you can see my screen.
We can see the screen. Go ahead, please.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. So I'd like to speak with you this morning about two things related to quality and quality assurance in terms of substance use disorder treatment. Let me just... Sorry, slight technical. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd like to talk to you about creating quality treatment through quality assurance. And there's two main areas that I'd like to cover today. One is a background on quality in the international standards and something called the key quality standards. And then two initiatives that can be, that you can hook into to support countries to improve their substance use disorder treatment. And then come on to some quick conclusions and some contacts for going forwards. So what is quality in drug treatment or substance use disorder treatment? Well, we all know something about quality in our lives. So when we go to the supermarket or when we shop for some household goods, we look for something that is of a quality. So quality is something that is of a known standard or degree of excellence. The World Health Organization defines quality as the extent to which healthcare services provide individuals and patient populations to improve the desired health outcomes. And in this light, in terms of quality, treatment should be safe, effective, timely, efficient, equitable, and people or person-centered.
And my sincerest
Anja.
apologies, and my sincerest apologies. I think we only see the title slide right now. If you're advancing slides, what you
Yes,
may want
I
to
am.
do is to click the slideshow at the top, and then it's going to be in the presentation mode. So can we please try again, if you don't mind?
Okay, so I'm doing that on my computer. It's in slideshow on my computer. Let me stop and
And
start.
unfortunately, on the screen, it's not updating. So maybe we can restart and see if it works better.
Okay, apologies for that. Let me try that again. Let's try again. Apologies for this.
And what I recommend you to do is to, when you share the screen, please share the entire screen and not the PowerPoint software, and that may work better. And now we can see your slide. It's not in the slideshow mode. And if you can try to advance your slides, and then we can test if it works. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm having technical issues.
Not to worry, Annette, this happens to all of us. So thank you so much for helping us get it together.
Try again.
And we can see the creating quality title slide. It is not in the slideshow mode, unfortunately.
Slideshow mode?
No, not yet.
Okay. I've tried it 3 times to get it. It's on my screen, it's in slideshow mode.
And now we see it in the slideshow mode and in the presenter mode. So the next slide is small, is the small one on the right, and we can see your current slide, the big one on the left.
So can you instruct me as to what to do?
So if you could click on display settings at the top center. Yeah, display settings.
I believe it should be 3 dots, and in 3 dots you click hide presenter mode or presenter view. So 3 dots on the right under the slide, and then hide presenter view, and then you may want to advance your slides. But unfortunately, the problem is that it's not updating for us. We still see the presenter view if the presenter view is hidden for you.
Okay, can somebody else share this presentation, or should I just go through it?
That would be organizers' decisions.
think we can
Unfortunately, I don't have it.
I think we have this, we can see the slides now. We can give it a try. If the slides move ahead, we can use this view, I believe. And can you try to shift the slide? Yeah, so it's working for us now. Please,
It's
please,
working
you can
for you.
continue.
All right,
Yeah.
then I apologize for this. Okay, so as we know that there are international goals and agreement on ethical evidence-based practice and substance use disorder treatment. Anja and Dzmitry have talked about the international standards for the treatment of drug use disorders. And of course, countries are trying to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals, specifically target 3.5. Okay, so we know why substance use disorder treatment is important. We know that untreated substance use disorders, particularly dependence, is very costly for countries in terms of harm to individuals, families, communities, and economic burdens. We also know that substance use disorders can be successfully treated, and substance use disorder treatment is cost effective. But the caveat to this is that the treatment needs to be of good quality, and the treatment needs to be tailored to the needs of the individual patients. And it also requires a systems approach whereby planned and funded systems that are of quality and in line with the international standards are really required to be put in place by countries and local areas. So what we're talking about is ensuring that we haven't just got capacity of substance use disorder treatment, we've also got quality. Okay, so there's two levels of quality assurance that we can talk about. One is the systems level and one is the service level. The service level quality assurance is essentially ensuring that a local area or a country has substance use disorder treatment that is in line with the international standards, and specifically 5 standards. And the 5 standards are: there is multi-agency planning at a country or local level, including all key stakeholders, that there is an up-to-date needs assessment upon which to base a plan for the system, that the system itself has all of the key types of treatment in settings and modalities as recommended in the international standards, that there is a plan for the system and funding in line with that plan, and that the system has quality assurance. And by that we mean there's a data system underpinning it, there's interventions to reduce stigma and uphold human rights, and that the staff and the workforce are competent. Now, in 2021, a number of the international agencies came together, because a number of the international agencies had developed suites of quality assurance standards. And these suites of quality assurance standards for treatment services included standards developed in Europe, by WHO and UNODC based upon the international standards. The African Union had created standards. There was some training happening in terms of the UNODC services toolkit. And there was also a set of standards developed in Latin America and the Caribbean by COPOLAD and CCAD. And all of these internationals came together and they looked at what were the key quality standards that they would recommend from all of these different international suites of standards. And they came up with a set of key quality standards 2021. And these standards, essentially, there's 22 standards for substance use disorder treatment services and 59 criteria, and they're grouped into 4 groups: the effective management of services, individualized patient-centered treatment and care, timely access to evidence-based interventions, and the promotion of patients' health, safety, and human rights. Now, let me tell you about the 2 initiatives that you can join into if you would like to improve the quality of your substance use disorder treatment system or service. The first initiative is something called PCAT, the Programme for International Quality Assurance in Treatment. This is a project funded by INL. It's a quality assurance programme, and it provides technical support to countries to help them plan the system of care in line with the international standards, and then offer services that are evidence-based. And it's offered by and supported through 3 international organisations, including Colombo Plan, OAS CCAD, and UNODC. And the purpose of this project is to help countries assess and adhere to compliance with the international standards. And there's 13 steps that are involved in PCAT. And let me quickly show you what those are. Essentially, it's about helping the country create a quality assurance team and support the country to develop or adapt quality assurance mechanisms, and then support it through various cycles of evaluation and improvement until the quality assurance system is sustained. So it's about helping the country establish the quality assurance mechanism and then test it until it's embedded. The 13 steps are working with the country to gain interest in the project and getting buy-in through a letter of interest, helping the country create a quality assurance team, supporting that team to do a system assessment, and then create an action plan to improve the system in line with international standards. Then training a network of managers and quality control inspectors or assessors, and then helping that team essentially work through quality assurance mechanisms and embed them in the country, whether that's quality assuring the substance use disorder treatment services and testing that and embedding it. And essentially, those are the PCAT steps. The second initiative I'd like to tell you about is the International Consortium on Quality Assurance for Substance Use Disorders. And the vision, this is ICQ, the vision for ICQ is to try and create a healthier global community where evidence and quality assurance and human rights transform approaches to treatment services for people with substance use disorders and their families and communities. The mission is to provide global leadership and a hub for organizations interested in promoting and improving the quality of substance use disorder treatment systems and services. Okay, so ICQ works in partnership with the key stakeholders, including the international agencies, international agencies that are responsible for helping countries. The first piece of work that ICQ has been doing has been working with country or international quality assurance organizations. So these are the organizations responsible for quality assuring substance use disorder treatment services. And we've currently got 5 of these organizations involved. And they're creating a kind of a peer review process whereby they can quality stamp when a QA agency is operating in line with international standards and the key quality standards. We're expanding that to substance use disorder treatment service providers, and then also patient and family and caregiver and advocacy groups. Okay, and the key thing is that we're trying to create peer-led quality assurance mechanism to recognize quality, then provide training and mentoring in the peer-led resources, and then technical assistance. Okay, so both PCAT and ICQ want to try and help assess local or country level systems against international services and assess services against the key quality standards, and work very, very much in partnership with countries to do these assessments. And then the longer term goal is to embed a culture of continuous improvement in services and systems. So we get sustainable quality systems of care. Okay, so conclusions are standards supported by quality assurance mechanisms. We think these are a key way to embed sustainable, demonstrable quality substance use disorder treatment. So we think that this is a good way of helping countries embed and improve quality. We think the quality assurance mechanisms can help us recognize good practice, challenge poor practice, and encourage positive improvement. So implementation is critical. Implementation of standards is critical, and support is available for countries through ICQ and PCAT. Okay, so together we can make a difference. So if you'd like to get involved with either ICQ or PCAT, you can do so through these contact details through our website, and contacting the person that's leading on this initiative, which is Rita Notrandrea, and the email address is there. Thank you very much, and I apologize for my technical issues.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I'm pretty sure that more and more member states will join this initiative. That's much needed. The most recent World Drug Report tells us that stimulants, they continue to be one of the most commonly used substances globally. And for many regions in the world, they remain a problem of concern. Our next presentation is focused on stimulant use disorder, and we'll be focusing specifically on the treatment-related aspects. For this presentation, Ms. Anja from UNODC will be joined by Professor Ezard from Australia, Sydney. May I request Ms. Anja and Professor Ezard to start their presentation, please.
Thank you very much. Can I confirm that you can see my slide?
No, not yet.
No.
I can also try sharing screen in parallel. That works.
Let me just see.
And we can see your slides, and you may want to move them into the slideshow mode. Thank you.
Is that better? Can you see that now?
Yes, we can see them. We can see them in the presenter view, but we can see the slides.
Okay. So go ahead. Sorry, I don't know what you're saying.
We see the largest slide on the left and the next smaller slide on the right. That is the presenter view.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Sorry, just give me 1 chance.
2 screens on.
Are we good now?
Perfect.
Please go ahead, yes.
Perfect, excellent. All right, thank you very much. So my name is Nadine Ezard. I'm a doctor and I'm speaking from Sydney, Australia, where I'm the clinical director of a hospital-based alcohol and drug service, as well as the director of a research centre that focuses mainly on methamphetamines. And I'm joined here by Anja Busse, who you've already met this afternoon, evening, this morning, who's from UNODC in Vienna. I'm very, very pleased to be having this discussion today with everyone here, because what we are seeing, as you can see from this image from the latest UNODC World Drug Report, is that we're seeing a rapid expansion of global methamphetamine sale, at least. And we're seeing that expansion into new markets as well. So that rapid expansion is accounted largely from the Middle East and Southwest Asia, but also new markets in Western Europe. So it's something that is now affecting all of us. This translates also to methamphetamine use disorder, which is becoming increasingly diffused globally. The graph that you see, the image that you see there in front of you, is already 3 or 4 years old. And it does give Australia, according to our data at least, the first place in being affected by substance use disorder or dependence around the world. But globally, we see almost 100 people per 100,000 population and counting. Curiously, with this particular drug, unlike some other drugs, we're seeing almost gender parity, so almost equal women and men are using methamphetamine, but we're not seeing them in treatment. In fact, we're hardly seeing anybody in treatment. UNODC estimates that less than 20% of people access treatment, but amongst those, only a third of them are women. And for methamphetamine use disorder, that's really going to have an impact on the harms that we see around the world. So why aren't people coming into treatment? The current treatments are not appealing to people with methamphetamine use disorder, that may not be based on scientific evidence and may not be particularly effective. So UNODC brokered a meeting already now 4 years ago in 2019 in request from member states, and brought 40 experts from around the world to summarise scientific evidence and made a call to action for member states to actually consider expanding specific treatment options and medical interventions. And more recently, we've seen some guidelines, such as the American Society on Addiction Medicine this year released the management of stimulant use disorder guidelines as an example. And we've already heard about the mental health gap program, which also includes some evidence-based interventions for methamphetamine use disorder. So what is the basis of what we know about interventions? The mainstay of treatment and the bulk of the evidence is with psychosocial evidence interventions. The strongest intervention is perhaps for so-called contingency management, which is where rewards are provided for the behaviour that the person is seeking to change. And the strongest evidence is for people who are paid some kind of prize or cash benefit for producing a urine drug screen that is negative for methamphetamine 3 times a week. And there are other variations of that kind of approach that are showing some evidence of effectiveness, but also other cognitive behavioural therapy type approaches are also effective, but the effect does go away after the intervention stops, and we see better effect for people who are using less frequently and have less severe disorder. So we still don't have good access to effective interventions for people who are using very frequently or with a very severe methamphetamine use disorder. We still don't have an approved medication, although a recent systematic review data suggests that prescription psychostimulants, particularly when they excluded the studies with a high risk of bias, may be effective. So things like methylphenidate and dexamphetamine. Also, some evidence suggestive of topiramate and naltrexone, and more recently, 2 randomized control trials. So one looking at mirtazapine, which showed evidence amongst men who have sex with men and transsexual women, and that's being repeated now in Australia with broad populations. And also, excitingly, a combination of bupropion and naltrexone intervention that shows evidence of effectiveness. And it's likely that combining these medications with psychosocial treatments like contingency management might assist people to actually adhere to the treatment and engage in other kind of treatments as well. When we're looking at treating methamphetamine use disorder, we must also look at some of the coexisting conditions and seek to prevent and manage some of the common conditions we see. So perhaps things are associated with the route of administration, so injecting related conditions like bloodborne virus prevention and treatment and sexually transmitted infections. But we also need to be alert to managing acute effects like overdose and intoxication, and some of the effects we see of chronic use, such as depression, anxiety, psychosis, withdrawal, suicidality, we see really quite commonly. So we need to be able to manage those things aside from managing the stimulant use disorder itself, as well as a number of toxicities that we see from chronic use, particularly cardiac and cerebrovascular, as well as some of the neurological syndromes, particularly cognitive impairment after long-term high-dose use. Also need to be able to be aware and manage co-occurring mental disorders like depression and ADHD and co-occurring substance use disorders, which are very common. So what is the framework that we need to be using for interventions? We have some key principles. So particularly looking at how we engage people and how we retain them, because dropouts are high even in the studies. The treatments need to be accessible to everybody, and we've already seen how women are not well attracted to the current interventions that we're offering. Very important, like any substance use disorder, to offer non-judgmental, non-stigmatizing interventions. And we need a broad range of services. So from education, outreach, prevention and peer support, all the way through to probably a stepped care approach, looking at combinations of medications and psychosocial interventions. And while we do that, we must collect the evidence to test the health and the economic benefits. And due to the increasing impact of stimulants on public health in the United States, which arguably leads the largest research program into methamphetamine use disorder, the development of mitigation-based treatment is a priority for both the FDA and the NIH coming in time to come. So what can we do? I'm going to hand over to my colleague Anja Busse to let us know what's the next steps.
Thank you so much, Nadine, for walking us through all the situation and the evidence. And what we really would like to suggest jointly for all members also of the Global Synthetic Coalition is to start looking into an initiative to address this need around methamphetamine use and stimulant use, and identify and implement scalable interventions for treatment and care of stimulant use disorders. And we are suggesting to do this based on a research collaborative that we have already, or we are already counting on, with many researchers such as Nadine from all around the world who are currently involved in studies on psychosocial and pharmacological treatment of stimulant use disorders. So based on that, we hope to go a step further and develop common protocols for implementation in community-based programs that should have behavioral and pharmacological elements, and then design and implement a study that can further test the effectiveness and, of course, the safety of such implementation. And once we have piloted that, and this is now really looking into the future, follow up with a multi-country study. And we have the idea would then be that we have a package for community implementation. And maybe just to go back and say that with this research collaborative that emerged from the original group with which we developed the discussion paper that you've seen already, and now involves really many more researchers as that are currently doing this research, we also, the focus will be the common outcome measures to develop protocols, to take them into a pilot study, take them into implementation, and see if jointly we can come up with scalable interventions for the treatment of stimulant use disorders, and really counting on both what we know from the evidence on psychosocial and the emerging evidence on pharmacological treatment for stimulant use disorders. And you're really all very much invited to join this new initiative of UNODC and partners, which we will call Scale Up. And if you would like to hear more about this, please do reach out to us at UNODC or also to Nadine, and we will be happy to make you part of the design of the Scale Up initiative, as well as later on, if all goes well, the implementation of the multi-country study and this new project. Thank you so very much.